Hey everybody, and welcome to Bits of Board, where we're talking board games, miniatures, cards, and dice. My name's Michael, and today we're reviewing Destinies, an app-driven competitive storytelling game in which players take on the role of various characters chasing their own in-game purpose in a race to see who can fulfill their destiny first. Destinies is a mechanically light game, but what it has is solid. It's just not the focus of the whole gaming experience. If I had to give out the mechanism elevator pitch, I would call it a resource card management push your luck race game. But I don't think that'd do it justice, as like I said, these aren't the main reasons that you're playing. Destiny's main draw and its true focus is on its narrative. The base game comes complete with a single one-shot scenario in which players can take on the role of up to 3 different characters, each with 2 ways they can fulfill their destiny, and a single campaign consisting of 4 scenarios, through which they will guide up to, again, 3 different characters for each scenario. That means we've got 15 different destinies to fulfill as the campaign continues. Now, when I say scenarios, I don't mean it in the traditional sense, where you can take any character off to a scenario and see how they fare. Characters here are tied to the scenario, with their destiny essentially a roadmap to the story of the land in their surrounds. When players begin a game, they are faced with a small section of available map to explore, complete with points of interest and characters with which they can interact. Players can stay and do just that, or they can choose to move on, revealing additional areas of the map and again more points of interest and characters. Now, one of the selling points for Destinies is that each game takes place in a living, breathing world, and the characters, conversations, and opportunities flow like a stream. Take too long to interact, and it's possible that the opportunities just wash away. But more often than not, others float in to take their place. This, as far as motivation goes, gives players a small sense of urgency to their destiny investigation. Player characters have a backstory and an intro to each path of their destiny, but from there it's up to players to determine how they go about progressing to endgame. For now, let's instead hone in on the gameplay behind the game. And aside from exploration and some movement limitations to overcome as the map area grows, the only real gameplay mechanic for players to interact with is the test mechanism. See, as players unravel their story, more often than not, they'll be required to make a test to determine the outcome of an interaction with a point of interest or a character on the board. And here we're not strictly speaking a simple pass-fail kind of test. Tests will each have a difficulty, requiring a number of successes to pass, anywhere from 1 to 6. Unfortunately though, the difficulty of a test at hand is not actually displayed to players. Mechanically, a player will roll their main dice, adding in any number of effort dice that they choose. Main dice are available for all tests, but the effort dice are expended after use and can only be recovered 1 dice per turn as the game continues. Once rolled, the total value of all dice rolled are then compared to one of a player's skill tracks relating to the test itself, with the player receiving 1 success for every counter the value meets or exceeds, plus any automatic successes shown on the dice. Players then add in any additional successes granted by items in their possession, and then the number of successes is entered into the app, and it tells you how you went. Generally, if you succeed, you get the item or information you were after, and sometimes even a boost to your skills. On the other hand, if you don't succeed, you often lose a point in the skill the test was made against. But you also receive an experience token which can be discarded at any later time to provide a permanent 2-point boost across your skills spent in any way that you'd like. It's a nice trade-off, and while sometimes failures will send you to an early end of turn, the XP really serves as to soften the blow. Now, items are a big deal in Destinies. Not only do they serve the player with their printed effect, in a lot of cases they can also be used to shortcut certain tests in the game. Sometimes the app will ask you during an interaction whether you think you have an item that would help. And if you do, you can present it in lieu of taking the test. You scan the item's QR code, and the app displays the results. And that's kind of the meat and veg of the game. You have miniatures representing key characters on the board, a few tokens to help distinguish the different shops that can become available, but really that's it. Narrative-driven exploration games have absolutely blown up of late. And here I mean those kinds of games that have players navigating tiles, solving puzzles, not really the dungeon delving kind. And now with the success of games like Seventh Continent and Tainted Grail, it's obvious that there's a kind of demand for this kind of experience. Myself, I've most certainly succumbed. And aside from Destinies, the three others that I have in the collection are Seventh Continent, Tainted Grail, and Etherfields. And if you'll excuse me here for one sec, I'm going to give you the speediest review of each to context my final thoughts on Destinies. Seventh Continent was the first of its kind here, I think. At least I wasn't aware of anything before. In this game, exploration is strong, but where it really captures the player is the urgency to explore, rather than what it is you're exploring. There is no fluffing around in this game. You explore like your life depends on it, because it does. And after a certain point, any of your next turns could be your last. This is game level stressful, and with its level of difficulty, it might take players multiple attempts to win a scenario. Game mechanics are tied to collection and utilization of items, and keeping track of what you've explored. In Seventh Continent, we've got a medium weight game with a heavy emphasis on exploration, a vague story drive, and engaging mechanisms. Tainted Grail is next, and it was a massive success for me. Here, exploration, while still a necessity, plays a supporting role to the rest of the game. Instead, you're mainly focused on developing your character's story amidst the overarching narrative. Each character is flawed and has this unique path through the game, which, being set in a grim medieval world scattered with both Arthurian and Celtic perils, is more than engaging to say the least. The best part of this game is that supporting all of this compelling narrative is some absolutely standout gameplay in the combat mechanics. Encounters are card and combo driven, and it really goes to show that Tainted Grail really is a game at heart. Exploration and narrative is there, but it still has the thoughtfulness of a solid deck builder. With Tainted Grail, we've got a medium to heavy weight game with a moderate emphasis on exploration and involved story and strong gameplay mechanics. Last is Etherfields, and this walks a similar path to Grail in that there's a very strong story focus, this time more of an unraveling mystery though. Again, we have unique characters and exploration, but not all exploration is tied to the overworld. See, Etherfield takes part in a dreamscape, meaning pretty much anything can happen, and there are sometimes even randomized events to spice things up, including sorts of mini scenarios players must utilize to improve their characters. It is more of a role-playing vibe than strictly gameplay, but there is again a unique card-driven system for resolution of encounters. What we have with Etherfields is a heavy-ish weight game with a tight focus on exploration, an engaging and developing story, and strong gameplay mechanics. Now, that right there is my experience with the genre so far, but something you've got to realize here is that each of those games is a cooperative experience. Destinies is not, and as far as I know, this is the first fully competitive narrative-driven exploration game. That said now, let's review. Everything about this game is slick. Production-wise, the minis are of a great quality, the tokens are thick, the dice are chunky and engraved, and if I was nitpicking, the only improvement that I could see would be to add some sort of linen finish to the cards and map tiles or something. They're just the standard floppy affair at the moment. Learning the game is a breeze, rules are light, and once you know how to play, setup details are handled straight through the app. And setup is quick, which means you can get it to the table more and more often. And yeah, the app is great. Scenario introductions are voiced, and there's music and ambience to accompany the game throughout. All pluses. In fact, the vibe of this game is amazing, and it does everything it can to keep you in the mood and engaged, which is important because gameplay-wise, there's not heaps to talk about here. I really do like the test system. I like the push your luck element with the effort dice, and I really like that you're not really penalized for failing. In fact, I think the game might even be balanced in a way that a player with awful luck at the beginning of the game has an equal footing with someone rolling well, just because of how jacked their skills can actually become. I really like how the items work in-game, that they have multiple uses, they have text effects, item type effects based on who you encounter, and they have use for resolving tests. But sometimes it seems that an item's usability only really becomes apparent when it's all but too late. Timed events make it a little hard to determine whether an opportunity is still going to be there if you have to put them off. But that's this game's urgency. Now, as far as playing the game actually goes, Destinies is a really cool experience. You get to bring your phone out, scan high-tech codes on cards, and roll dice. But that's it. Most of the gameplay, like movement and figures, is completed on the app and merely mirrored physically on the board by players. In fact, you can play this game with player boards, dice, item cards, and app on its own if you can't be bothered to set up the map and organize the minis, which is a portability plus, right? But for those after a board game experience, this I don't think is the box you're after. To me, when I play a board game, I want to play a board game. Destinies, I think, could have easily been a video game, except it does rely on some player interaction in the form of exploration of areas, discoveries of points of interest that might be relevant to you, but it really is the app that controls the play. I do like what the app does though. It handles just so much that would be impossible without a ton of cards in the box, and it hides a lot of information for the better of the game, helps keep the experience a surprise. But in some cases, I think it hides too much. The test system is adamantly against showing you the difficulty of the test that you're facing. And while you can probably take a guess based on the context of the text, all in all, you just end up rolling without any purpose in mind. There is no, all right, I need 3 successes, you grab your dice, shake them out, roll. There's no reaction. It's just, oh, okay, I have a test. Does it match one of my best skills? Yes, no, I roll, enter the number of successes into the phone, and I see the results. There's just no immediate gratification after the roll, and it is so weird. That said though, I do get it. Here, ignorance can be bliss, and I suppose it has players more comfortable in taking tests, protecting them from knowing that some of them might be impossible to succeed. Here, at least, you're given the opportunity to try with courage, and because the game doesn't punish failure, you're still going to get information and meaningful development for your character. I just wish it had that old school board game excitement. At the end of the day, it is narrative that carries Destinies from being a meh game to a really good gaming experience. If it were the first narrative exploration game I'd played, I would be completely blown away. But the problem here, it's not, and I've seen from which games it takes its influence. Seventh Continent has this desperate survival, Taunted Grail has story and gameplay, and Etherfields has this bizarreness that is just unlike anything else out there. Destinies has an app. Replaying the game, I feel like I've said it before with other campaign style games, there's no real point if you want to experience something completely new. Best you can do is play with another character, but either way you will have lost the exploration element of the game, and you'll probably have a much better idea of where things are going to pop up and when. All that said, here we come to Destiny's ace in the hole. It is the most inexpensive narrative exploration game around. All the other ones I would have mentioned would set you back both an arm and a leg in retail. In Australia, Destinies costs you $70. That is $50 US and is complete bargains for what you get in the box. It's also the lightest of those I've mentioned, and despite some mature themed evilness going on, it would work pretty well as a family experience. Maybe not young family, but definitely a mature family experience. And whether you're into competitive games or not, fear not, you can actually play this game solo and as a group with shared decision making. Either way, characters per player, you are going to get 30 unique plays if you win each one. 15 characters, 2 ways to win each character, and what's more, the base game's campaign will change and morph depending on the previous scenario, so there's a lot in the box. All in all, I'm very happy to have it, and I genuinely enjoyed the storytelling experience, so For what it's worth, if you're still interested, I'd recommend checking it out, and you'll know everything you need to know about this game, play-wise, from the one shot. So it's a relatively short time cost to suss out whether it's your kind of game or not. So, with all that said, that's enough of my prattling around. We are going to call it there. If you've enjoyed the video, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and do all the things that you guys can do to help this channel grow. But besides that, we are done. So as always, my name's Michael, this is Bits Aboard. We'll catch you next time.